These are the voices that make Missouri work. This is Profiles from the Heartlander. So, Hannah, it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you.
I think your task is an interesting one, given what I've heard about the legislature in the past. There's division, there's rancor, egos, fighting, infighting, but from what I gather so far, I don't sense it here this time.
It has been, I think, the best session I've ever seen. This is my 9th session, and it has just been a breath of fresh air. Really, the things they've gotten done, the accomplishments they've made, it's been impressive.
Yeah, when you say in the time you've seen this, they've been maybe the most accomplished, like what kind of things? What have you seen happen quickly?
So, Governor Kehoe's top priority when he came in was law enforcement, specifically in St. Louis. I grew up about an hour and a half south of St. Louis, and St. Louis, like, we all love and know it and love it. Maybe not our Kansas City area folks, but I'm a Cardinals fan.
Okay.
I have the best memories of going to Cardinals games and hanging out in St. Louis, and it's just sad what's happened there. And Governor Kehoe is from there, and so that was obviously a big priority of his to try to turn it around. So his big priority, sponsored by Representative Brad Christ out of St. Louis, House Bill 495, I believe, changed the police force quite a bit. Support for law enforcement. It was a huge deal to try to get it done because it's been a multi-year project, and we'll see how that goes. But I mean, that was early March. I think he got that signed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How are the House now? You're primarily in and around and of the House.
Yes.
How are they working, the different chambers? What's going on over in the Senate? Are they getting along well? I hear there's often a lot of polarization there.
it is very common to blame the Senate. That's kind of the joke.
Yeah.
The House works and we blame the Senate, but they are both functioning really, really well. I think that is largely because of their leadership. I'm a House person. I love my House guys, but Speaker JP, John Patterson, and Floor Leader Alex Riley they've done a fantastic job. There's no ego at play. It's just about process and getting things done and a fair shake. Yeah. And Senator O'Laughlin, Senator Luke Kmeyer in the Senate on their side, they're the same thing. Which, in my former life, I got to know all these people when they were running for office the first time. So it's fantastic to watch how their leadership has progressed and how they've just made things happen.
There may be people watching that don't know what it is to be a part of what's known as the House Republican Campaign Committee. What is that? Explain for people.
That's a great question. We prefer to operate in shadows. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the smoke room.
Yeah, exactly.
Rooms,
no,
right? Yeah.
It sounds fancy, but really, we are just the entity that helps the House caucus. So we elect Republicans, we keep Republicans there, and we grow the caucus the best we can. Right now, we have 110. We had 111. One of our members vacated to go take a role with the Secretary of State's office, but we have a supermajority, and it was very hard to keep that supermajority last year. I think it might be harder to keep it next year because our districts are constantly changing. But my role essentially is to operate the organization, raise about $4 million every 2 years to try to run campaigns and recruit good candidates to run in those campaigns.
And who, if I may, just I'm curious, when you raise that kind of money, who's interested in that? Are those business interests, individual interests? Who likes to support the efforts? Generally, do you find?
Our caucus members are huge supporters of our efforts.
Like the actual members?
Our actual members.
Okay.
Businesses, organizations, people who do business in Missouri and want to see us succeed. We have a variety of different donors, but it's about half our caucus members, half business interests.
That's interesting. The tax subject we've talked a little bit about today in some previous interviews. Talking about an environment of being hospitable to business. We look at states like Tennessee, we look at states like Florida. They've done away with those taxes, and I've asked these guys, you think we're going to get rid of the income tax? I mean, they're talking like maybe that's a real thing in the offing.
Yeah.
Maybe?
I know there's an effort to get that done. I know there's also an effort to get rid of the capital gains tax, which I think may be a little bit further along in the process right now. But ultimately, I mean, we have a Republican supermajority, and that's what they want to get done. That's what voters want us to get done. So I think you'll see some progress on that.
I mean, that's just huge when you're talking about deregulating, lowering taxes. Business is obviously deeply interested in that. And I mean, there's clearly one side that's interested in doing that and one side that's not.
Right. Yeah.
And the supermajority matters. And they're getting along. I mean, that's refreshing because I will tell you, just in the limited time that I've been studying Missouri politics in the last few years, it's felt like there's been a lot of gridlock. Is that a correct interpretation?
I think it is. I think Governor Kehoe has made it very clear, really on his first day, and I tell everybody this. Governor Kehoe is a wonderful man. He's just a great person, but he's also a fantastic politician. And when he meets you, he'll remember what you told him or your family member or where you're from for 5 years. You'll see him 5 years later and he'll remember that. And that's such a special gift and a skill because it makes people feel remembered and cherished. And that's something that I'm so happy we have in the governor's office. And we've seen him. I mean, he's in the halls. He's working his legislation. He has personal relationships with all the legislators. And I think that's from top down, from that leadership, our House and Senate leadership, there just was a message of no more malarkey, as Joe Biden likes to say. And let's get stuff done for Missourians.
How about school choice? What do you know about it, at least on the House side? Do you find that most of the Republican caucus supports the idea? And I know it's been kind of incremental. It's not what you'd call universal, as maybe our neighbors to the north and south have done. Where do you see that going?
Our caucus is very pro-school choice. Obviously, it's an idea that it takes adjustment and takes learning and it takes education. I think school choice is a complicated issue to explain because there's so many facets of it and it affects people differently regardless of where you are. But we did pass 727 last year, the legislature did, which was a massive school choice omnibus bill. And this year, the House got out open enrollment, which is sponsored by Representative Brad Pollitt, who's been working for years on trying to get it done. So they are pro-school choice. It's a slow roll, which I'm one of those people. I think it should take a little time to get things passed through the legislature so we can vet them, make sure everything in there is good for Missouri citizens.
You can speak to this. This is something that for the few years now that I've been working on the subject specifically of school choice, I have heard many Republicans, through no fault of their own, and I understand it, they have constituents in their districts, big and small, particularly in the small ones, superintendents, teachers, janitors, coaches. Sometimes that school is one of the biggest employers in their community or their districts, and that notion of school choice scares them. I would say incorrectly, that's my word, but is that weighing on some Republican caucus members? Yeah,
so I have an interesting perspective. I grew up in a very rural community. My mom was a teacher my entire life, recently retired and is loving retirement. But what happens is there is a state organization here, right? And people are paid, these are jobs, these are just people doing their jobs, but they're paid to share a certain amount of message with administrators, teachers, school employees that aren't always necessarily 100% the truth. So I understand their fears, they're founded, but we can both support our local schools, especially our rural schools. If they're doing a good job, that's great. They have nothing to worry about. But if there are improvements to be made, competition's good. There's still opportunities for all kinds of educators, and we want more of them to come to Missouri. And with 727, we increased teacher pay across the state. So we are pro-teacher and we are pro-education for kids. And you can be both.
Yeah. Do you think the caucus is coming around to that broadly?
Yes.
Or are some of them still struggling with it?
It's tough. It's always going to be tough. The thing about the Republican Party is we're a big tent party. So we're not always going to agree 100% of the time. But overall, most of our caucus sees that.
What would you say is this? I mean, we're what, 3 weeks out until we wrap it up?
Yes.
What was the biggest accomplishment, do you think, for the Republicans this session? And where do you think we're headed, maybe, in the next one?
So I'd say leaps and bounds, probably the abortion fix. HJR 73. I think that's the issue that's been looming over everyone's heads this session. Amendment 3 spent $33 million, mostly of out-of-state money, where our side had $2 to $3 million, I don't know the exact number, and not super united effort to fix it, to go against it. Generally in campaigns, if you have $33 million to $2 million, you're going to win, because you have the ability to control all the messaging.
Yeah. Do you think, I'm sorry to interrupt on that point, do you think, had it just been a better funded pushback, Missourians would have better understood the issue and it would have failed?
I think there's a large possibility that would have happened. I think you saw in the last few weeks a lot of people being informed and aware.
Even for that amount of money, it was pretty tight.
It was really tight for that amount of money. HJR 73, the thing that I really admire that it does is, one, it just gives the voters an opportunity. No one's rejecting the will of the voters. The legislature has as much of a right to put things on the ballot as the citizens do through IP processes. So they're putting it on the ballot for voters to decide, but also Amendment 3 really recklessly put a lot of women at danger because they basically got rid of any abortion safety regulations for abortion clinics. So HJR 73 is much more really about women's health and safety than it is just about abortion. Because this is going to result in women's death beyond just the child's death if we don't do something about it.
Because it was, I mean, for people that don't know or forgot or weren't paying close attention, this was considered one of the more radical,
It was, yes.
in terms of verbiage,
Yes.
implemented in our Constitution.
Yes, many attorneys would tell you that it would allow abortion until birth.
Wow.
Right.
And
And that's for Missouri.
by the way,
Missouri is not a pro-choice state.
And if you don't mind my asking, I don't mean to be personal, you don't have to answer this. You shared with me that you're an expectant mother. Does that hit you differently?
I am very familiar with this issue. This issue is really why I got into politics in the first place.
really?
I'm a conservative Christian, and so I cared about abortion as a young kid and teenager. And I think the thing that we have done well on our side that the Democrats refuse to do, because generally on abortion, you've got the Democrats talking at one level and the Republicans talking at another, and they never talk about the same thing. But the Democrats, what they refuse to do, if you'll watch that House debate from last week, is that they refuse to even acknowledge that it's a child. Right? It's all about you're trying to control women's bodies. No one's trying to control women's bodies. Our side, of course, we have compassion, and so many of our members have worked in this field. There's a freshman state representative. Her name is Becky Laubinger from Deloge area. She's the director of a pregnancy care center. She's done the work. She's been there on the battleground. And so she stood up and had a really, really amazing thing to say, that I have worked with these women. I have compassion for these women. I want to help counsel and find solutions for these women. But that does not mean we terminate life because someone's in a bad situation. So, yeah, I mean, it's personal. This is my second child. I cannot imagine being in a position, and I have so much compassion for the women who encounter situations in which they may need an abortion.
There have been, in our region in particular, in northern Missouri anyway, the Kansas City Metro, there are two different counties in Clay and Platte, really robust clinics for women to experience sonograms. And they say statistically, once that experience happens,
Right.
women who maybe thought maybe they wanted an abortion change their mind.
Right.
Do we see maybe more funding for clinics like that to give women another look at it?
I think Missouri is very open to, and we may invest in that. I'm not necessarily a budget hawk.
Yeah, sure.
But
Sure.
something that I know we have worked on is that something that the Democrats will constantly say about abortion is you only care about, pro-birth, not pro-life. Yeah. And then they'll say something about how we don't do anything with foster care. Yeah. The first bill out of the House this year was a bill to improve foster care by Melissa Schmidt, who's a state rep from Lebanon area. It's not true. Their narrative is never true. We are the party of family. We're the party of women and children and mothers and fathers, and we prove it with our legislation and what we put at the ballot box. And I hope that Missourians see that when this gets to their ballot box.
It's good to hear the progress this session. Do you anticipate the same will be the case in the next session?
Well, election year sessions are a little different.
Yeah.
Everybody's running for something.
Yeah.
But I do think you're going to have the same leadership team next session. And I've just been, I worked with Speaker Patterson and Floor Leader Alex Riley from before they ran for office, and I helped them get elected. And I love those guys. They are passionate about what they do. They care about the process. I always say I'm a political hack. I'm not a policy wonk, but they are so thorough on the policy and fair chances for their members. I can't imagine that next session isn't also as successful as this session.
I really appreciate you taking the time today. Congratulations on the new baby. And
Thank you very
thank you
much
for visiting with us today.
Thanks for having me.